I really thought I was going to lose most of them when I started doing the WWE stuff.
Mm.
I was kind of accepting of that and I was understanding of that. I felt like for sure, if the person I watched could completely flipped overnight to something completely different than what we normally do, I would, yeah, I'd probably stop watching if, especially if it's something I'm not interested in.
What's going on, guys? It is your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another video. This time, I'm joined by the one and only Josh from the Porticus. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Excited.
So, if we take this back, Josh, I know it might be public knowledge now because the YouTube algorithm seems to love one of your videos. But where do you first discover wrestling, my friend, as an overall fan?
Where did I discover it?
Yeah.
It was well, it was just through Peacock. I was getting ads for WrestleMania 39 before, like, as it was approaching over a year ago, and I didn't know that I just kind of already had access to it. I already had Peacock. I wasn't paying for it. I had it through like my internet or something. So it was being advertised for me as, hey, you already have access to this. You should watch this. So I gave it a shot, and yeah, just off of pure luck of seeing an advertisement for WrestleMania, I watched my first show, and now the rest is history. Now I never miss a show.
Why did it, for lack of a better word, my friend, why did it take so long for you to become a wrestling fan? You think?
I was just never a part of my life. Like, no one I knew watched it. None of my family watched it. So it wasn't like I avoided it. It's not like I was against it. It's not like I wouldn't have thought I would have liked it, but there was just nobody else in my life that did it, or that watched it. And so since I was already watching other sports, and I was active playing sports growing up, so there was never, like, my schedule was never, I never really was looking for something new. I was already so locked into all my current interests that it took until I got to be like age 30 to where I'm just skimming and looking around, and yeah, I just, by pretty much by happenstance, just happened to get into it.
Mm. So you talked about there, obviously, your other interest outside of wrestling. So what was the interest that maybe when you discovered wrestling and decided I'm all in with this? What was that interest that maybe took a hit, for lack of a better word?
um I don't I would say it, maybe I don't watch as many general sports as much anymore. I don't really play as many video games anymore. But that kind of went away when I started just streaming on Twitch. I wasn't really playing I used to play a bunch of video games. I don't really do that as much anymore. But yeah, I think I just watch less of the, more general and common sports that I used to watch. And now I'm all in on, I watch wrestling like 2 or 3 times a week, every week, and every PLE.
Mm. So you talk about there going from, to use a car analogy, 0 to 60 quite quickly. And what was that you were like, you enjoyed WrestleMania? What was it you enjoyed about WrestleMania 39, first of all?
I enjoyed trying to understand how it worked. I was very interested in, I became interested in the behind the scenes stuff almost
Mm.
immediately. So I kind of wanted to learn how they were doing certain spots, how they were making certain things look so real. I was very interested in just the workings of it all. So just even as, not even just as someone just watching the matches, but um, I was very, very curious of just what brought the show together, and how it all worked.
I know from my research, watching your I watched WWE for the first time in my life video. The first match you saw overall was John Cena versus Austin Theory, and I know you have some thoughts on that match. So, what are your thoughts on that match?
Looking back, I mean, it wasn't one of the greatest matches I've ever seen, but for being my first one, it almost kind of worked out as the perfect match for me, because John Cena is so known for calling his spots and you can hear it on TV. It was almost perfect because that was interesting to me. I think a lot of people would have that break their immersion.
Mm.
But for me, it was more like that's kind of cool. I kind of like seeing the behind the scenes stuff and getting a peek behind the curtain. So it didn't really bother me too much, and I think that almost helped pique my interest a little bit more.
It's got very, very dark here in the UK, just all of a sudden. So this is very unprofessional. I do apologize.
Oh,
You're
you're
right. If I
good.
just go stick a light on super
Yeah,
quickly.
you're good.
Sorry, my friend. I do apologize.
You're
That was
good.
very unprofessional.
Nah, don't worry
So
about it.
you also talked about in that video the fact that you had some faults on Logan Paul, first of all, and then a match you saw with Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins. So, what was your experience with Logan Paul pre watching wrestling and things like that? And how did watching him in wrestling change your perspective on him, maybe?
I think I don't know if it wasn't just it was definitely Logan Paul and Seth Rollins together. They definitely they showed me some of like a little bit of the theatrical side, like the Prime bottle and all of that. I got a kick out of that. I really enjoyed that they took it seems like the WWE took something in Logan Paul where he's so universally disliked out of the WWE. He's because he doesn't have a great history, he doesn't have a great past. So they took that and kind of leaned into it, knowing that he was already going to be disliked immediately. And he's got so much experience, being a YouTuber, being able to play up a character that he was kind of a natural fit, it seems like. And that match was just, it was really interesting just to see how much he could play into this heel character where he was kind of like banking on everybody already disliking him. And over time, yeah, I would say my opinion has changed on Logan Paul. I mean, in total fairness, like he has a pretty terrible history, and he doesn't have the great. He's made some questionable business decisions, but at the end of the day, I'm a fan of Logan Paul, the character,
Hmm.
the wrestler. I don't really concern myself with his real life endeavors. That's not really of interest to me. I don't follow it, so I'm sure people have more details than I do. But Logan Paul, the WWE wrestler, I've become a fan of. He seems like he was born to play this character and do what he's doing every week.
Something that you brought up there, very interesting, was able to separate the art from the artist, for lack of a better phrase. And that's something I really enjoy about your videos. You're very able to take a almost a neutral's point of view and almost because you are a new fan, sort of take the new fans' perspective and sort of like I said, one of the videos I really liked on your channel as well was your thoughts on AEW. You was able to take a neutral thought on that as well. So, do you think that discovering wrestling at a more grown-up age, for lack of a better word, helped you take a neutral point on it as a creator? That was a very wordy question. I do apologize.
No, maybe I could see that. I could see because I don't have the nostalgia. I don't have the glasses that a lot of people I feel like who are lifetime fans. I don't have the constant comparisons. I'm not constantly. I'm not one of those people who are. And this, I mean, no hate to these people, but I do hear people very often. They'll say, "Yeah, but like in the Attitude Era," and like they're always comparing it to something from 20, 30 years ago, and that's fine, but that's a lot of nostalgia talking. And I even when I was talking from to Matt from Assemble, he mentioned that um that a lot of long-term fans kind of look back on wrestling maybe with some rose-tinted glasses where he said that it felt like when you look back, it feels like every week you were seeing Austin and The Rock, and it felt like it was constant star power. But I guess if you really look back, there's a lot, there's a lot of no names and a lot of people that you maybe only saw once. And so that's just one example of just, I think that nostalgia can negatively affect how you can enjoy the current day and age and the current show. And I don't really have that. And it's an advantage and it can be a disadvantage. Sometimes I don't understand things when they're happening and I have to look it up later. I don't understand references. But I also sometimes it's good to be able to look at a character and not have any of that history that other people might have. And I've enjoyed that same thing like you brought up about AEW. All I knew about AEW before I started watching AEW was I only had heard WWE's opinion, or sorry,
Mm,
WWE fans' opinion of AEW, which depending on who you talk to is oftentimes going to be negative, but that's because there's that little bit of tribalism of, well, my show's better and no, my
yeah.
show's better. But when I went in and just watched their pay-per-view, I get why it's different. I get why a fan of one show might not enjoy the other, but I also understand why it's a very appealing product, even though it's not the same as what I watch every week. It's very different, but you can tell that it was born from the same inspiration as as what every WWE fan was watching as a kid. It's clearly inspired by that. So it's in a way it's the same. It's just a different approach for trying to deliver that same feeling, I guess.
You brought up the tribalism in wrestling there, and that leads me to social media in wrestling. How much time now that you are a wrestling fan do you spend on like wrestling social media and maybe sites like Fightful and things like that?
It depends on the website. Like I'll scroll through. I get a lot of wrestling stuff on like TikTok and shorts and stuff like that, and a lot of it'll be like clips from biographies and old highlights that I really enjoy, or some behind the scenes stuff. Um, I block a lot of people, or I block a lot of pages. I block a lot of people that I feel like it's very clear their intentions are to divide fan bases and make things worse, which if that's what they want to do, do whatever you want. But I mean, I'll even have some people in my comments that, you know, on my AEW video, I'll just end up like, I don't care if my video doesn't have as many comments, or if it hurts the algorithm or whatever. I'll delete comments that are clearly trying to spark an argument and spark but you can kind of tell when somebody's asking a question or coming at you in bad faith, and they're trying to disrespect what you like, and use that to elevate the thing that they like. So when it comes to social media and the WWE, I try to stay away from the random comments and chatter, because it's almost always filled with people trying to get a reaction out of somebody or try to bait somebody into an argument. And it sucks that it's like that, but I mean, it's like that with anything. I don't even think it's just wrestling. I think that's just the internet.
Mm, I understand what you're saying completely there. You also brought up the rose tinted glasses that certain fans have for previous eras. So, how much have you gone back and watched of previous eras, and what is your thoughts on any previous stuff before you started watching wrestling?
I watch so I do go back and I watch classic matches, and then I post my reaction to it on my Patreon. And there's some I just watched the last two matches I just watched were two different street fights with Mick Foley or Cactus Jack against, one was against Randy Orton and one was against Triple H. And it's crazy. It's very, very different. And this is why the more that I watch classic matches, the more I can understand why AEW fans flock to it and they don't enjoy I can tell there are definitely AEW fans that really like that part of wrestling and want to keep that part of wrestling. WWE doesn't deliver that kind of wrestling anymore.
Mm,
They'll occasionally dabble in a little bit of extra violence or some blood, but it's the thumbtacks, the barbed wire. That's all something that I can definitely tell AEW is trying to keep alive, and that's for that part of the fan base. So I get that, but I can see how it has heavily evolved. The more I watch the old matches, it's I would say it's been good and bad. I'd say mostly good. I've seen a lot of inspiration for moves and stuff that I see today. I can see a lot of stuff in promos that looks like it's maybe inspired a little bit of character work today, but I guess there's really not that much bad. I mean, it does suck going back and seeing that like the women are not very well represented back then, almost at all. There's like a few that were standouts, like I think one was like Lita, like Trish, and like there's a few that kind of tried to break out from the stereotype that the WWE and F were trying to put them in back then. So I guess those are the few parts that kind of stick out to me as, oh, that kind of sucks. But it is nice to see the progression and to see that, the product has gotten better in those areas.
You talk about the product getting better there. Obviously, you never really were a fan during the Vince McMahon era, if I'm correct on this.
Yeah.
I think I'm correct on that.
Yeah.
Like, so have you gone back and maybe because of everything that's come out about Vince that we know as fans, that like diehard fans, have you gone back and researched or anything? Or have you just gone, nope, gonna stay away from that? Like, I don't need to know about that.
I wouldn't say I've gone back and researched it, but just by proxy, I've seen enough. I've seen things from him. Um, it's been explained to me that he was he was almost it's almost that he was right for the time, and it's almost like the world and the product kind of outgrew him. He lost his way along the way. So I can get that, but no, I wouldn't say I really researched it, but I've seen enough segments and clips of Vince that I could see why his style and his approach to things wouldn't be nearly as accepted today. And I can see why it's kind of come back to haunt him, and it's kind of pushed him away from, what he created.
Mm. We talked about earlier about, first of all, we skipped around, and that's just how my interviews go, man. And
It's
I
fine.
do apologize for that. But like, how did you then decide I like wrestling? I'm really enjoying this. I want to start making content on it.
Oh, how did I decide to make content? I've been okay, so I've streamed on Twitch doing completely different stuff really for like 3 years. And so I was already kind of in the content space. I had a few YouTube videos that I did for other like video games and stuff like that that did fine, but nothing I ever did consistently. So I was already kind of I've wanted to do something. I've had the idea that I wanted to do something in WWE, but I was always hesitant because I felt like most of the content that I see, it's a lot of people that are very experienced. They know what they're talking about. So I always felt like I would come off as, I don't know, like kind of like a little bit fraudulent. Like I would come off like, oh, I'm pretending to be a fan, or I'm
Mm.
pretending to know what I'm talking about. And then I think over time, it kind of just hit me like, instead of waiting 5 years for me to feel like I have enough experience to like give my expert takes and stuff like that, I decided, I'll just try making the content around the fact that I don't know what I'm watching and that I am new to it. And it seems to have been welcomed. I was a little worried that it wouldn't be taken so well. I was a little bit worried that because I don't know, sometimes you try to get into something new and people can kind of try to gatekeep it a little bit, and they kind of don't want someone, oh, you can't just come in here, and that happened a little bit, but overall like 99% of it has been super welcoming of people wanting to help me learn and help guide me into what matches I should check out. And overall, I'm really glad that I did it because I've I've really enjoyed that I found this like non-toxic and very positive pocket of like wrestling, pro wrestling, internet fandom. And yeah, it was really just a matter of, instead of waiting to become an expert, just make content around not being an expert and not knowing much. And yeah, it's been fun.
It's really, really cool. Do you worry though? And I'm curious to know this, my friend. As you get more experienced, your content style might change, and you might change. This sounds very meta, but not what I mean. Who you are as a creator, if you know what I mean.
I don't worry about it. I mean, I know I'm not going to be the new guy forever, because this is where I have, I guess, a bit of an advantage of, um, I'm not new to making content. I've been a Twitch streamer for years, and it was like my full-time gig for 2.5 years. And so I'm already very aware that I can't, you can't do the same thing forever. And I know that I can't be doing this in 2 years and still be the new guy. By at some point, you're no longer the new fan. And I get that. I don't plan on trying to like ride that forever. And um, I'm enjoying just getting to know other creators. I'm enjoying trying new shows, like trying AEW or I want to I want to do something similar for like watching TNA for the first time, and continue to explore instead of just continuing to sit in the pocket that I'm in right now.
You talked about getting to know other creators. Who are the creators that you're like, I've enjoyed working with them so far. I enjoy their work. And how did it feel? How did you feel about approaching creators when you were a new fan? And how did it feel when they accepted you, for lack of a better word?
It was nerve wracking. I'll say that. I was definitely nervous, but it helped that the two people, I mean, the only two people that I've worked with were Matt from Assemble, and then I just put out a video with Santi Zap, and it was definitely nerve wracking trying to like I was the one that reached out, and it was pretty nerve wracking, but at the end of the day, they're just you got to remember they're just people. They're it's not like they're gonna come off and be like rude to you or anything. So yeah, I just I reached out and I told them that I was interested, and they were both really kind, really easy to work with. I think Matt was really kind. I was happy to meet him. I still talk to him from time to time. And Santi was really easy to work with. He was a pleasure, and it was really interesting making a video with Santi because you can tell he's really experienced and he makes videos every single day because the guy never tripped over like the whole time we were recording. He didn't trip over his words or anything once. It was he didn't have to like stop and restart or say anything. So it was really cool to see that and get to chat with him for a little while.
That's really, really cool. Well, you talk about the fact that you still talk to Matt from its Assemble and things like that. What is something that you learned from both of them as you were creating with them?
Something I learned from them. It was, I mean, pretty much what was in the videos, especially from Matt, because we got to talk a little bit longer with Matt. Because we were the whole point of the video with Matt was we were exploring the contrast of me being a new fan and him watching his whole life. So we got to see, I got to get a few more of my questions answered of what it was like to grow up being a wrestling fan as a kid, because that's something I'll never get to experience. And I always understood that it was, there was kind of like a stigma of being a wrestling fan growing up. So that was like a big thing that I was interested to learn from Matt of what it was like to grow up in like kind of a world where it wasn't super widely accepted to be a wrestling fan.
Mm. What about Santi? Is there anything you learned from him?
Yeah, he told me about some referee character that was very interesting. I don't remember like I don't have all the details of it, but I guess he was always like because we talked in the video about referees having character arcs and stuff like that, and he told me about I think the ref's name ended up being like Tim something.
Tim
He couldn't
White?
remember. I think so. Like I guess he was a bit of a
Oh,
character of a
I
ref. I
think I
learned a little
know
bit
what
about
you're
him.
talking about. Is this where, for the PG audience, he was trying to end his life, for
Yeah, I
lack of a
think
better word?
yeah, that's what we were learning about that. I guess that was a storyline they were trying back in the day, and I thought that was pretty crazy.
Mm. So you also talked about with Matt as well the stigma that he might have had, and also the enjoyment he might have had from growing up a wrestling fan. Was
Mhm.
there anything? Is there any regret on your part not growing up a wrestling fan and being like, "Oh, I wish I'd had this my entire life"? But then, is there also some sort of like, "I'm really happy to discover it now because I think I appreciate it more now"?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I wish I had discovered it at least a little sooner. I think it would have been cool to get in early on the Bloodline storyline, and have gotten to see like the Sammy betrayal and all of that kind of go down live. But yeah, like you said, you know getting into wrestling has been one of the most fulfilling things myself and my fiance have done. It's all we talk about. Like we talk about wrestling all the time. We're looking forward to shows. We're constantly looking up tickets for and like scheduling weekend trips to like try to just go see a house show. Uh, so yeah, as much as it would have been cool to be a fan as a kid, who knows? Maybe I would have been one of those fans that stopped watching in the 2010s, and maybe I wouldn't have come back. So maybe I wouldn't be enjoying this and doing what I'm doing right now. So I mean, as much as it would be cool to say I watched it my whole life, I'm pretty content with getting into it right now because I'm enjoying it, wholeheartedly.
You brought up your fiance there. What was that conversation like with her? Did she have any previous wrestling fan experience and things like that? And then what was that conversation where it was like, I think we should start watching wrestling together?
It was she said that she had watched a little bit with her family growing up, but not much. Like it was just kind of on, but she didn't really know anything. She didn't really watch anything. And when we started watching together, it was we watched it. We fell in love with it at the same time. So there wasn't really much conversation to be had. We started watching WrestleMania 39, then we watched the very next Raw, and we both. I mean, she got super attached to Roman's character. I got super attached to like the whole Cody versus Roman saga, the Bloodline, and yeah, there wasn't really much of a conversation. It was just we just kind of we both simultaneously fell in love with wrestling at the same time, so it was really convenient.
It's really, really cool. Obviously, as a full-time wrestling fan and a full-time creator, you might deal with burnout as a creator and as a fan. So what have you put in place to avoid burnout, my friend?
I've already learned how to properly deal with that ahead of time from like I said, that from the years I was streaming on Twitch because I did burn myself out on Twitch by going too hard too long, and I was streaming like 5 6 days a week for like 4 or 5 hours at a time, and it that kind of got me to a point where I almost hated streaming for a little bit because I was just doing it too much. And so now when I come up with ideas and I come up with things that I want to do, I always make sure that I ask myself, is this something not that I just want to do right now, but is this something I'm willing to maintain? Is whatever I'm about to add to my plate something I'm willing to do every week or every month? And so sometimes that results in me doing things a bit slower, but I overall it is a much better approach for me mental health wise to not get too excited and just do everything at once and just do too
Yeah.
much right off the bat.
What do you do on, you talked about mental health there. How do you keep yourself motivated on those days that you might be scheduled to stream or scheduled to put out a video and you're like too tired, too burnt out? How do you keep yourself motivated?
I think it's just that I don't overdo it anymore. So I really, because I'm not overdoing it, I don't find myself in that conflict as much as I used to. I don't really wake up and think like, oh, I don't really want to stream. So really my way of avoiding that was what kind of what I said, where I'm not putting too much on my plate. And it helps that I'm really passionate about what I'm doing right now, because what I was doing on Twitch, definitely I was getting tired of doing. I was doing it for 3 years, and now this is so fresh, and it's got so many different avenues that I could take with it. That I mean, right now I just wake up every day excited to want to work on something new and come up with new ideas to do things. So yeah, I'd say the short answer is I'm really careful not to put too much on my plate in terms of biting off more than I can chew for working on too much at once.
It's obvious how passionate you are as a wrestling fan and things like that as a new fan. What would you do as a creator if that passion slowly started to go away and things like that? And do you worry about, because you're so passionate about it now, the passion going away ever?
I mean, I think with anything, yeah, it could the honeymoon phase could eventually fade away a little bit, but I think it's just a matter of I think it's more of how you look at it and how you approach it and how much you stay in one spot. So if I mean I'm already looking at other promotions. I'm trying I'm planning what like TNA show I want to really watch. I'm looking into indie shows that I want to go to. I want to go to my first indie show. So I'm this is kind of where the experience of streaming before really helps me here, is that I know that kind of burnout, and I know that kind of
Hmm.
feeling can come. So I'm not really letting myself get locked into like I only watch WW and I only watch Raw, I only watch SmackDown, so I'm doing my best to open up as much diversity in how much wrestling I consume and the way I consume it, so that it never feels like I'm doing the same thing over and over again.
That's really, really cool, my friend. So you talk about as well, you obviously at the end of your I watched WWE for the first time, you gave new wrestling fans some great advice and people that wanted to get into wrestling some great advice. So what, just to repeat, not to repeat that advice, but just to talk about that advice, what would be your advice to someone that wants to, is thinking about getting into wrestling but doesn't want to be ridiculed or things like that? And just is thinking about it.
What was the advice I gave? Do you remember? Because I don't remember. I'm trying to remember which line you're talking about.
Something along the lines of like, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't
Yeah, that's
have
fine.
a eidetic memory. It's just something along the lines of enjoy it as a show, enjoy it as if you
Oh
were
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Breaking Bad, for example.
Yeah, that's what's weird to me is like it's more so advice to anyone who does enjoy it that get yeah okay so that makes sense what you're asking with people who might be ridiculing you or who are talking down to you being a
Mhm.
wrestling fan. Well, first of all, those people probably aren't very cool, so don't hang out with those people anymore. But if it is people, if it's just some friends jabbing at you and not really giving wrestling a chance or kind of making funny, as long as you as long as you get it across that wrestling isn't fighting. It's
Mhm.
not. It's not because it's very fair as someone to. It's very fair for someone to look at pro wrestling for the first time and immediately compare it to boxing or compare it to MMA. That's fair because that's what it looks like. That's the type of environment it's trying to build.
Emulate.
Right. It's totally fair to to look at it that way, but then you have to sometimes you have to correct those people and you have to be like, no, it's just meant to look like that. It's more like your favorite TV show or it's
Mhm.
more like your favorite movie. These are actors. They're putting on their performance live. It's like going to the theater and you're watching them on a stage. Nobody on that stage in the theater is trying to convince you what they're doing is real. They're trying to tell a story. And the moment you can get past that feeling like they're trying to trick you, as soon as you can realize they're not trying to trick you and they're trying to entertain you, that's where you open the key to enjoying it. Because a lot of us as humans, we really, especially with today's social media and everything, we have our guard up. We don't want to be tricked. We don't want to be fooled by ads. We don't want to be fooled in general. We want to feel like we can't be tricked by that stuff. And so when fake fighting gets presented to us, it's very common to not well, no, I can tell that's fake. That's not real. You can't fool me. As soon as you can get past that issue of realizing they're not trying to trick you, they want to entertain you. They just want you to follow along the story. They want to do some cool stunts and they want you to enjoy yourself. It is so much easier to enjoy it. So try to get whoever's giving you issues to get past that point and help them understand that it's not real. Like they're not really fighting, but they're putting on a show and you enjoy that show.
What about advice for people like yourself that are umming and ahhing about creating wrestling content, but do you have any advice for them
Advice for people making wrestling content?
that want to make wrestling content but are in the thinking about it stage?
Oh, I mean, the common advice that I had seen, and I've seen a lot of advice, some of it not, I don't feel like is that helpful, but if you haven't started yet, it's to just start. It sounds like, oh, well, obviously, but like it's so easy to get stuck on that. What's the first good idea? I'll be completely honest. I've said this a few times. That first video that blew up, that becoming a wrestling fan in 1 year or whatever I titled it, that was I didn't expect anyone to see that. That was
Mhm.
supposed to be for me. That was supposed to be like a practice video. If I had known that many people would see it, I probably would have taken a little bit more. There's a few there's pieces of context that I feel like also got left out. There's extra like minor details that aren't important, but stuff that if I knew it was going to be like this big video, I would have probably added and maybe edited a little bit better. Um, so you never know what could be the first video that gets seen by people. It could be your first video, it could be your 10th, it could be your 100th, but yeah, just start making it. And then the secondary advice that I have followed for years, I don't remember who told it to me at this point. It was so long ago, but um Every time you make a video, just make one thing better than your last video.
Yeah.
You know, your first video doesn't have to be perfect. Just make a video. And then your second video, do one thing, pick one thing in your second video that's going to be better than what was in your first video. And if you do that every time, if you just do one little detail better by your 10th or 15th or 20th video, you'll see that you are improving and you're enjoying yourself more and you're more proud of what you're doing. So, yeah, that's just start making content and find what you want to do with it and find what is enjoyable for you.
Really, really cool. You talk about it being enjoyable for you there. What is, as we record this in June of 2024, what is this? I know you're mainly a WWE guy, but what is the storyline that you're like, I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying wrestling right now because of this.
I don't know how long the storyline is going to go, but I'm waiting for Otis to turn on Chad. That's what they keep teasing it every week. I'm excited for like the Uncle Howdy Wyatt stuff that's been teased, but in terms of just a random like storyline that I think that it's relatively new that I've been enjoying, the whole dynamic of the Alpha Academy, Chad and Sammy. I think that's been really interesting. I think Piper Niven cut a really good promo recently. I think her versus Bailey could be really fun. I think that's like the first time I've seen Piper get a chance to really give uh, a non backstage effective promo out in the ring. I think she's a really good fit for Chelsea. I think Chelsea is
Mm,
a really good like that cowardly heel sidekick where Piper
mm.
is kind of the muscle. So yeah, I mean, those are a few that just stand out to me. I really like what they're doing with some of these storylines right now.
You talked about there using the wrestling terminology, for lack of a better word, like heel, face, and things like that. So,
Yeah,
as a new fan, how did you learn that sort of terminology?
just watching so much stuff, like just hearing. I mean, I've tried to like adapt to the surroundings. Like the more I'm watching it, the more I see people talking about it. Um, and also I had some friends that I was watching wrestling with as when I was first starting. So I always had a couple friends um, to bounce questions off of immediately, and I could kind of ask like, "Hey, what does that mean?" or "What? Why do you call them that?" or something. And but it's actually funny you say that because I've had people not believe that I'm a new fan. They think I'm faking it because I'm already using all the terminology. And I'm
Mm.
like, I mean, no, I just tried to I actively went out of my way to learn the terminology so I wouldn't sound like I didn't know anything. Yeah, I didn't want to just be making stuff up. I wanted to learn how people refer to things and be able to talk about wrestling with other wrestling fans without feeling like I'm sounding like an idiot.
It's really, really cool. What is the wrestling terminology that you're like, nah, that's stupid. I'm never going to use that as a new fan, sort of thing.
You'll never catch me calling anybody a mark. I think the way that's used now is I've learned what it was supposed to mean, what it has meant, and what fans use it as. I feel like it just gets used in like a under like a rude undertone,
Derogatory.
derogatory term. Yeah, it's kind of you'll never catch me calling someone a mark. I promise you that. I think that's just weird.
Very, very cool. As we look at wrapping this up, because I do want to be respectful of your time, my friend, I'm curious to know. We've been talking for about 30 minutes, and I'm always curious to know from people that have podcasted and done videos themselves, where can I improve as an interviewer and everything in between? What did you enjoy? Things like that.
I thought it was really good. I think you did well at portraying that you're listening to my answers by mentioning things that I was saying to bring up your next topic. If you're asking for something you could do to improve,
Mm,
oh, I don't know. You could on some of the questions I wouldn't mind. I know it's an interview, so you're just trying to get mostly my answers. But I mean, I would have been open if you gave your thoughts on any of the stuff you brought up a little bit. So um, I don't know. So I guess I could have I would have been curious to hear maybe some of your thoughts on some of it. But overall, as an interview, I mean, I've only done a few of these, but yeah, it was good. It was really pleasant talking to you.
I really enjoyed that. I try and bring up my things, but I find I always watch it back in the edit, and I'm like, and I'm sure you've done this. So it's like, shut up, like let the person talk. I'm guilty of that, and I know I'm guilty of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, again, it's obviously it's your content. So like if you prefer to only like to kind of just interview, yeah, obviously do whatever you enjoy. It's kind of like the advice we are talking about earlier. If that's if doing it the way you're doing it is making the video that you like and that you're proud of, then that's what you should keep doing. Yeah, you know.
That's very, very cool. Who are some of the creators you talked about the video being proud of there? Who are some of the creators you talked about working with Matt and Santi there? Who
Mhm.
are some of the creators that you're like, I'm enjoying their work. I'd love to work with them further down the line.
I would have told you Santi. That Santi would have been the would have been the long term goal. I'm actually like really the fact that Santi is willing to work with like really small creators, like I've seen him work with people that have like, hardly any subs, or that with like 1,000 subs, 100 subs. So massive shout out to Santi. Like he really does practice what he preaches. Like he wants, you can tell he wants the wrestling community and the content community to grow, because someone of his size, doesn't have to do a video with me. Doesn't have to do a video with someone half my size or a quarter of my
Mm,
size, or he doesn't have to. Like he could work with only like really big creators and help grow himself and grow them. But yeah, very selfless of him to, you know, do these with much smaller creators, and Matt as well. Like these are both creators
mm,
that have established themselves in the space, and don't need to work with someone that much smaller with them. There's not a ton for them to gain there, but that's not true. They are gaining because they want the community. It's very clear they want the community to grow. They want it to thrive, with how much wrestling has picked up. So in terms of someone I'd want to work with in the future, uh I think it would be cool to, I don't have anyone specific, but I think it would be really cool to work with either a former wrestler or a wrestler to ask a lot of my questions to.
mm.
I think while I'm still a new fan, that would be a really cool thing to do, is to have someone new to watching wrestling get to talk to a wrestler and um, ask those kinds of questions, and like straight from the source. I think that'd be cool.
Understand what you're saying completely there. So you talked about there as well the creators that you want to work with and the fact that Matt and Santi have added want to add to this space. So as a new fan that's creating content, what do you think you've added to this space?
I think what I added to the space. I didn't see a ton of people doing what I was doing with with the approach of um, being a brand new fan and not really knowing much. And I think the reason for that is because I think it's the reason why I almost didn't do it and why I was worried to do it, because you're not sure if you're going to be accepted in a space of making a video. I mean, because it could have gone either way, right? I could have made the
Yeah,
video saying I don't know much, and then people could have been like, well, why are you making a video on it? Get out of here! I mean, you never know how people are going to react. So, um, I could see maybe that's why there haven't been a lot of people trying to make videos like that, but I think from what I can tell, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the only one doing this, but I feel very proud of the community that is kind of built around it already, where it feels very non toxic. Like in my Discord and my Patreon, is everybody's seeing everybody talk about. I mean, there's AEW fans and WWE fans in my community that talk, and they're very respectful for one another. So I'm not going to by any means act like I've created something new there, but I do feel good that I'm adding to the non toxic side of things. I wouldn't feel very good if I was seeing in my comments like everybody coming together to argue all the time. That would feel like I'm just adding another place for the toxicity to fester and grow. But I'm happy with that. I'm pretty happy to see that my community has been super kind to me and super kind to each other, and it's just, it makes it more enjoyable to want to make videos and to want to make content, because the people that I see that are watching it are super kind to me, and I want to keep giving them things that they can enjoy and get entertainment out of.
mm. So you talked about everything that you've enjoyed since becoming a wrestling fan and a wrestling creator. What was it like as someone that streamed video games to take that leap and say to your fans, right, we're gonna go do a 180, 360, whatever word you want to use, and we're gonna talk about wrestling now. How was that for you as a creator to discuss that with your fans?
It's a good question because that was something that I worried about. Uh that was one of the things that made me hesitant, is because my current content that I was doing on Twitch was very, it was not even close. Not even close to res. Like I was playing a game called XCOM, and it's just a turn-based shooter game. It's a turn-based like army versus alien shooter game, strategy game. And
Mm,
I played a ton of that. That's what I built my whole community on. But I did have my foot in the door a little bit, because in the last couple of years, just for fun, and this kind of might have contributed to how I, this probably contributed to why I gave WrestleMania 39 a chance, is something that we would do on my Twitch channel is every Friday or something like that, we would call Fight Night. And
mm,
I would take the VIPs of my channel, or like the subscribers to my channel, I would just put their names on random fighters and wrestlers. Um, and then we would just simulate it and just bet on it in like the Twitch predictions or whatever. And we just kind of did that for like a half hour before I would do my normal stream. It was just something goofy to kind of do. And that kind of grew over time, where people were enjoying the fight night, even though they weren't wrestling fans. These were still just like XCOM strategy gamers. That was like my main audience. Over time, I had done the WWE, and we even did it with UFC for a little bit. That kind of grew to the point where it became expected on my channel. So I think it made it a little bit easier when I did finally take the leap and say, "Hey, guys, I'm going to be doing a major shift here. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm interested in doing this." And I think it helps that my community has been so, they've been very supportive of me for years, and they've been very kind, and I couldn't have asked to have a better Twitch community be built over those 3 years, because I really thought I was going to lose most of them when I started doing the WWE stuff.
mm,
I was kind of accepting of that, and I was understanding of that. I felt like for sure, if the person I watched could completely flipped overnight to something completely different than what we normally do, I would, yeah, I'd probably stop watching, if especially if it's something I'm not interested in. But the reality is, I feel like I've turned some people who weren't wrestling fans
mm.
into wrestling fans. Like I can think of a few people off the top of my head that I know did not watch wrestling, but when my content shifted, they stuck with me. And shout out to those people for sticking with me. And now they watch wrestling, and they watch my WWE streams on Twitch, like my 2K my WWE 2K streams. So it went over significantly better than I expected, telling everybody that I'm suddenly going to be doing totally different content. I'm very thankful that my community was that supportive.
It's very, very cool. You also talked about making the shift. So we talked about making the shift as a content creator. But I want to know, before I ask you about your career as a content creator, whether it's a success and things like that, do you view being a wrestling fan as a success so far?
Oh, for sure. I love it. Even if I wasn't making content that whole first year for it. It wasn't baked into, you know, being a wrestling fan does not depend on like making content for me at all, because I that first year I was just watching. I wasn't making any content around it. I wasn't even considering it. I was just enjoying watching it. So now the fact that I've been able to incorporate it in the content creation space, because I was already doing content, it was just different content. So now that I've been able to turn this new thing that I'm super passionate about um, into part of my job, I'm extremely thankful for that. I very much enjoyed that.
That's very, very cool. So I alluded this to you earlier. So first of all, do you view your career as a content creator as a success? And what would you want your legacy as a wrestling fan and a creator to be?
Oh man. As a content creator, I would have called it a success before I started doing wrestling, only because I never expected I would have even gotten, like when I first started streaming, it was just kind of for fun.
Mm,
And the fact I never would have expected that it would have, contributed to, like paying some bills. I never would have expected it to make any money when I was just streaming on Twitch. It was never part of the plan. And so, yeah, immediately I surpassed, I would say for sure I've surpassed all expectations. And yeah, generally speaking, I would say it was a success, because I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago that one day I would be able to stream on Twitch and pay even some of my bills, I would have told you were crazy. So definitely a success there. In terms of what was the second part of the question? The
What would you want your legacy as a creator and a fan to be?
Oh God, a leg. I didn't never even thought of that. Maybe like
We asked the big questions here.
uh I would say that's a big question. So kind of kind of what I'm doing right now, but to a larger scale. I would feel very proud to say that I've gotten more people into wrestling, and maybe even prouder to say if I had anybody tell me that they were not interested in wrestling and they were hesitant, and maybe one of my videos uh, made them give it a chance or look at it differently, and now they're a fan, that would bring a ton of joy to me. I would, because I know how it felt for me making the switch over and understanding wrestling. And um, I thank people like Santi, Matt, and I like Wheezy Blonde, Con Man, all these content creators that kind of helped me get into it with their content. That would feel really cool, I guess, for one day to feel like I helped get some new people into wrestling. I think that would be pretty awesome.
That's really, really cool, my friend. As we wrap this up, we are going to do a segment that is a staple on this channel called Generic Questions. Those of you that
Okay.
have seen my news before, notice where I'll ask you your favorite match, favorite pay-per-view, favorite wrestler's entrance theme, favorite tag team, and favorite wrestler. Basically, questions I assume you might be asked on social media. So now you have a place to be like, I've answered this. Please go watch this. So, what's your favorite match of all time?
My favorite match of all time. I separate a little bit, so I'll give you two. My favorite match that I have seen live as it was happening, like so since I've started watching, just in this new age, definitely would be just that main event of the second night of WrestleMania 40. That brought so many emotions. That was so exciting of seeing Cody finish the story and like have all the big names come out. That was really cool. Historically, out of all the matches I've gone back to, it's probably Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 25. That one I've really, really enjoyed, where Undertaker dives out of the ring and hits the cameraman. So uh, that was really cool. So that's probably my favorite match I've gone back to watch.
Really, really cool. And then more about your favorite overall pay-per-view card.
Oh, that's tough. Maybe, maybe the Royal Rumble was pretty cool, but I mean, I hate to bring up WrestleMania 40 again, but maybe night one, or no, actually night two of WrestleMania 40 again, because that had the Sammy victory, if I remember correctly,
Mm,
and it also had the Bailey victory. So that whole show, I was enjoying myself. Everybody I was rooting for was winning. It was that one I really enjoyed. Yeah, that one.
that's really, really cool. What about your favorite wrestler's entrance theme?
It sucks because one of my favorite wrestlers is Bailey, and I don't like her entrance theme. But I love Rhea's entrance theme. I love Roman's got a really cool one. My favorite one though, maybe I think maybe even Judgment Days is really cool actually. I really like the rock ones, the ones that kind of have like the rock band influence in it, and not as much of the ED like electric music and stuff like that. But I think I'll stick with Rhea's. I think Rhea's entrance, especially with how like she does the stomp, and it feels very choreographed the way she gets in at certain points. I'll go with Rhea. I think Rhea's entrance theme is my favorite.
That's really, really cool. And then what about your favorite tag team?
I love the Street Profits. I think they're really interesting. I love the Usos when they were together. Um, I think an underrated one. I mean, I love like Bianca and Jade right now. I think they're fun. An underrated one that I think is one of my favorites. Excuse me. Um, Caden Carter and Katana Chance. I think that in that women's division, I love their finisher. I think that they use their size very creatively. So my favorite ones right now is probably Jade and Bianca, but I'm looking forward to Caden Carter and Katana Chance to like get back in the tag scene.
That's really, really cool. Just quickly before we do the final generic wrestling question of your favorite wrestler, why do you not like Bailey's entrance theme?
I don't know. It just doesn't really stand out to me. It kind of I didn't like the one she had when she was in Damage Control either. I liked her old one. I think her one with the inflatable tube men was really fun.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I don't like the role model at the beginning, which sucks because like I really wanted to like it, and I think it was kind of cool when it was at WrestleMania when it was debuted because I liked the whole like entrance that went along with it. I just feel like it doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't fit her because that's not even my place to say. She would know what fits her better than I would. Um, so I'm, if she loves it, then that's totally fine. I would never want her to like. I'd never expect an entrance to change because the fans don't like it as much. If that's what gets them hyped up and they feel like it fits their character, I respect that. But I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. I don't think it's very fun to. You can't really dance to it. You can't really sing to it. It's just kind of it feels very backgroundy. So I hope she ends up changing it again, but it is what it is.
that's very, very cool. Then finally, Deportus, what about biggest generic question, in my opinion? Who is your favorite overall wrestler?
Um, it might be to my favorite wrestler. It's so weird because it didn't start this way, but it what like in terms of long term and total respect for their story. From what I've gone back and learned, uh, I'll a lot of it would be Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is up there because of seeing what he went through in the 20 teens and being pushed as this face that nobody wanted, seeing him develop the tribal chief character and adapt to like the pandemic era. Um, he's up there. I would say it's a three-way tie between him, Rhea, and Bailey. I think are my favorites.
That's very, very cool. And then as we wrap this up, Deportus, obviously, I want to say thank you for a great conversation. But the question I end this show on is I believe as YouTubers, podcasters, even just people with social media, we're also going to live forever in a very, very strange way if you think about it. So,
Yeah.
what is one piece of content you're like, I would like to be remembered for that? Then, what is one that you're like, yuck, please forget about that?
Um,
Ow.
I I guess my because I mean I don't have a lot out there yet in terms of like the WWE stuff, but maybe I would say like the first big video that took off. I would say that's one that um I hope would stand the test of time because there is some I feel like there's some decent messages in there for people trying to get into wrestling. So that one I hope would last a while. Something that I wish would go away. If I have any, I probably deleted it. So I don't know. I probably, I mean, nothing that I've made in the wrestling or anything like that. I probably have some old videos that I just didn't like that I ended up deleting. But I don't think I have anything too much that I would say, yuck. I don't want anyone to see that. I stand by most of what I do.
That's very, very cool. As we wrap us up, obviously, I want to say thank you for a great conversation, but please promote yourself. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
I am Deporticus on all platforms. It's very fortunate that I have a unique username that isn't taken anywhere. So yeah, over on X/Twitter, um, I'm most active on YouTube and I'm most active on Twitch. So if you want some live streams over on Twitch, if you want my wrestling content over on YouTube, I have a Patreon as well, but welcome to check that out. But YouTube and Twitch are the two places that I feel like I'm the most active.
It's well worth doing, guys. Someone that is just making their way in this space in the wrestling content creation, but someone that's going to be very big in a few years, I believe. So if you guys like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Trerish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X at Tom Trerish, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.